Today, we're zooming in on what is, frankly, one of the loudest signals coming out of Silicon Valley right now, and that's the rise of the Kazakh AI founder. So this deep dive is a forensic decoding of the Salem Valley documentary. We're focusing specifically on the structural intelligence you, as a global investor, LP, or corporate strategist, really need to extract from this wave.
Exactly. Our mission here is to translate these founder stories into actionable macro signals.
Hmm.
For decades, the talent flow was pretty extractive. Kazakhstan exported high-skilled labor to Google, to Microsoft.
That was the dream, right? Get a job at a big tech firm.
That was the absolute peak.
Right.
But the signal we're analyzing today is a huge structural shift. It's the export of high-growth AI-native companies. We are tracking more than 10 of these startups right now. They're building, fundraising, and scaling globally, right from the Bay Area.
And that, you're saying, reveals Kazakhstan's next phase in the global tech value chain, a critical investment moment.
It is.
Okay, let's unpack that transformation. You mentioned that for a whole generation of technologists in Central Asia, just getting a job at a Fortune 500 company was the goal. What changed? What accelerated that ambition from just joining a big tech firm to actually founding the next one?
Well, it's an evolution, the founders describe themselves, and it's happened over, say, the last 15 years. That singular career dream has basically given way to pure entrepreneurial hunger. And the timing, really, it comes down to the technology itself. The founders we looked at, they recognized they missed the big foundational waves.
Mobile, cloud.
Right. Mobile, general web infrastructure, cloud computing.
Mm-hmm.
In those eras, you really needed deep, localized expertise or these, entrenched incumbent networks to even compete.
And this is where AI comes in as the great equalizer, I assume.
Precisely. Generative AI is the first technology wave where these Kazakh teams can genuinely compete on a global scale from day one. Why? Because there's no entrenched, localized expertise required in large language models. The playing field is, for the first time, level.
So anyone with the technical chops and the execution speed can jump in.
They can jump right in.
But then Silicon Valley has to act as the filter for all this global ambition. We often talk about it as a capital magnet, but for this cohort, there's the governance requirement, the immediate need for a U.S. C Corp structure. What's called the flip.
Mm-hmm.
Is that more of a necessary hurdle, or is it a genuine competitive advantage once they clear it?
That's a great question. And the answer is, it's both. It's a hurdle and it's a feature. So Silicon Valley provides the validation, that unparalleled concentration of capital, and, crucially, the governance standards that institutional funding demands. You have to incorporate in the U.S., you have to transfer the IP, commit to U.S. standards. It's expensive, it's friction, but once you do it,
Instant credibility.
instant credibility to global LPs.
Mhm.
As one founder put it, the culture there is just purely meritocratic. It said, if you create value, you are one of us. It doesn't matter where you come from.
And under all of this, you have the raw human capital. Kazakhstan is seen as a major source of technical talent within Central Asia. That's the foundation for this whole cross-border movement.
Absolutely. That foundational layer is why this cohort is so distinct. Okay, so let's move past the macro frame and dive into the real analytical insights. And we should start with the founder DNA itself.
Okay.
Because these are not first-timers, tentatively launching a side project. They have a very distinct profile.
And the evidence for that high risk tolerance, that persistence, it's just overwhelming. For instance, the founder of Cerebra AI is a known serial entrepreneur. And the Deep Infra founders, they eventually got into Y Combinator, but they had applied twice before and failed.
Right. They got in on their third attempt with a completely different idea.
That kind of high velocity iteration seems baked into their model.
It's mandatory. It has to be. And you can see it in their educational background, too. They're coming from strong regional institutions like Nazarbayev University, MUK, KBTU.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually interested in your take on this. For VCs, are these regional degrees being treated as, equivalent to an MIT or a Stanford Foundation? Or is the arbitrage purely about cost?
It seems like a combination, but the execution speed is really the differentiator. VCs are seeing the technical competence, they're recognizing a high-quality talent pool. But what really stands out is the non-corporate work ethic.
The grind.
The grind. We heard founders quoting hours like 10 a.m. to 3 a.m. and weekends, but they didn't frame it as bragging. They framed it as a structural necessity. It's this intense, hungry for success mentality. And for an early-stage investor, that is a critical indicator. It mitigates so much execution risk.
And that commitment, it leads directly to a really powerful investment signal, which is the talent arbitrage.
Yeah.
Because of this strong technical education system, engineers are plentiful. And the quality to cost ratio is just significantly more favorable compared to the U.S. markets.
And they're leveraging this.
Oh, absolutely. We
Yeah.
saw companies like Zenguard AI actively recruiting top-tier technical talent, not just from the big centers like Almaty or Astana, but aggressively pulling people from smaller regional cities.
Hmm.
Places like Ust-Kamenogorsk and Uralsk. They're tapping into a deep, motivated national talent pool. And that keeps their burn rate low while the execution stays incredibly high.
So that high-velocity DNA explains how they execute. But let's shift to what they're actually building. We found a really consistent strategy. They are strategically skipping the local market entirely. They're not trying to scale in Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
They're going straight for niche global pain points, specifically focusing on the enormous U.S. market where the revenue density is just highest.
It's a very calculated decision, to maximize the dollar per hour spent. Why struggle for a small local market dollar when you can solve a high-value U.S. enterprise problem? Look at Deep Infra and Altbridge. They pivoted from I think it was a general productivity tool to something hyper-niche.
Yeah, was it?
Commercial proposal generation for consulting partners.
That sounds incredibly specific, almost boring. Why is that so high value?
Because it solves a multi-million-dollar opportunity cost problem. The whole process of creating these detailed, compliant proposals for big clients is slow. It's manual, and it often prevents consulting partners from even responding to all the potential RFPs quickly enough. They're literally leaving millions on the table because of that friction.
And the pricing has to reflect that extreme value.
It does. They're charging an astounding $1,500 per seat per month.
Wow.
That price point is the ultimate green flag for any B2B SaaS investor. This isn't about volume. It's about solving a seven-figure annual problem for a partner at a major firm.
So the price tag is justified instantly by the margin uplift, not just the features.
Exactly. Another really compelling case is Cerebra AI. They're targeting stroke diagnosis. They aren't trying to solve a generic health problem. They are solving a very specific, very high-stakes problem, which is determining the time of a stroke's onset.
And that's vital for treatment, right?
It is vital for deciding the correct treatment protocol. About 27% of U.S. stroke patients can't determine the onset time. And, crucially, Cerebra focuses its AI on widely available non-contrast CT scanners. They're filling a massive gap left by the 87% of U.S. hospitals that don't have the MRI access needed for traditional diagnosis.
So they found a non-obvious, critical blind spot in U.S. healthcare infrastructure and just deployed AI to fix it.
That's the model.
Okay, let's shift to the third key insight, the capital filter itself. Accessing institutional money requires this specific, often expensive structure. We already touched on the flip, transferring the IP and corporate structure to the U.S. You said it's mandatory. Can you elaborate on the practical cost and time this creates?
It's significant friction. The founders spend a huge amount of time and legal fees just to become a compliant U.S. C Corp. That's the only way to accept U.S. institutional capital. But once they're through that gate, the due diligence process is, well, it's incredibly fast, sometimes dizzyingly so. For example, we saw an account where a major VC, Fearless VC, did this intense diligence on a startup called Alma. They spoke with all of their competitors within days of meeting the team.
And that velocity, I imagine, leads to some very high-stakes funding rounds.
Extremely. The Alma founders received a term sheet that expired in just 72 hours.
That is immense pressure.
It is, but that pressure is also a signal that quality teams get immediate commitment. And it's a stark contrast to the months it can take for the same team to process a U.S. visa, for example.
So the term sheet process is a forcing function.
It really is. The founders, even under that pressure, were advised to keep negotiating despite the deadline. And it worked. They got a better split deal.
It was the final deal.
$5 million from the house fund and $2.5 million from Fearless. It just underscores the urgency and the competition for top talent and these unique AI solutions even at pre-seed.
The speed of that capital decision-making is a perfect lead-in to our fourth insight, which is that Silicon Valley acts as a pivot force function. Founders have to demonstrate radical adaptation when the market feedback doesn't match their initial idea.
Right. The expectation in the Bay Area is that you do things that don't scale, and then you pivot aggressively when you need to. Alma is the quintessential example here. They started B2B, selling automated legal software to small immigration law firms.
Okay,
But they quickly realized that these small B2B clients were going to impose a margin ceiling on them no matter how much value the AI provided.
So the small client size limited their total addressable market and their growth potential.
Exactly. So they made this massive pivot to B2C. They started selling automated legal services directly to consumers. And that allowed them to capture the full value created by their product, bypassing that B2B margin ceiling entirely,
Much more scalable.
and much higher valuation potential.
And we saw a similar story with Surface AI in construction tech. They started off focusing on general contractors who are often inefficient.
Right. But GCs are often focused on short-term project costs, not long-term efficiency gains. So they pivoted fast. They started targeting large corporate operators, think massive chains like a McDonald's or any other firm that's constantly scaling its physical footprint.
Because those companies are inherently interested in construction efficiency.
Well, they have to be. They need repeatable, fast rollouts to support scaling their actual product, whether that's burgers or warehouses.
And their ambition evolved so dramatically. They went from a niche productivity tool to aiming to become the master data repository for commercial construction projects.
It's an infrastructure play, centralizing everything from site inspection to internal systems. That kind of pivot, driven by hard market feedback, is exactly what high-growth VCs are looking for.
Okay, so our final core insight. This one focuses on the ecosystem spillovers and the cross-border hubs that support this entire movement.
Yeah, this is key. The Silk Road Innovation Hub, which has been operating since 2022, is basically the physical and community infrastructure for founders from Central Eurasia.
Not just Kazakhstan.
No, it covers a wide swath: Azerbaijan, Turkey, Mongolia, Georgia. It's a regional hub.
And these hubs are so essential because they standardize those US-level startup practices. They accelerate the complex, non-obvious parts of the process, like the flip. What kind of structured programs are they running that make this whole process repeatable?
Well, they host highly institutional programs like the Alchemist B2B Accelerator, and that one specifically targets companies that already have $1 million+ in annual recurring revenue.
So it's for companies that have already found product market fit.
Exactly. And this structured accelerator is supported by entities like the Ministry of Digitalization and even the World Bank. It's a blueprint for development support, taking proven, successful companies and getting them ready for global scale and institutional capital.
That's the key, isn't it? The standardization and the spillover. By putting these founders through US-based accelerators and frameworks, they gain global networks, global standards, and they inevitably feed that back to their home countries.
And that fosters the next generation of role models. Founders who create wealth through technology, providing a powerful alternative narrative to the one that's been dominated by resource extraction for so long.
Okay, let's translate all these stories and macro signals into concrete decisions for our audience. For VCs, especially those at the pre-seed and seed stage, what is the immediate opportunity here?
The big one is that these diaspora-led AI startups, they significantly reduce early-stage execution risk. Think about it. Team formation, technical capability, initial product validation, they are intensely motivated and, as we've seen, technically very sophisticated.
So what should they be looking for?
VCs should be focusing on applied AI and B2B SaaS solutions that are addressing those non-sexy, high-margin U.S. problems. The high price points, like Deep Infra's $1,500 monthly fee, that just confirms that U.S. enterprise clients have the budget and the willingness to pay for real solutions to deep friction points.
Now, for the large corporate strategics, this seems like an immediate and very efficient partnership opportunity. These globally trained Kazakh founders offer a direct path to cutting-edge applied AI solutions without, the pain of building it all internally.
Right, or wading through the complexity of procurement with legacy tech giants. Consider partnering with a company like ZenGuard AI. Their expertise is in LLM cyber safety and compliance,
Which is a huge need right now.
a critical necessity in any regulated industry, finance, legal, government contracting. Partnering with them offers quick, compliant access to applied AI. It solves a massive problem that's only getting bigger as AI adoption accelerates. It's a much faster path than trying to hire an in-house team to solve foundational AI compliance from scratch.
And what about development banks and DFIs? What role should they be playing here?
Their role should be focused on infrastructure and simplification. They should be supporting the cross-border structures, the ecosystem builders like the Silk Road Innovation Hub. The core goal has to be streamlining that complex, expensive administrative burden.
The legal, the visa, the corporate flip process.
Exactly. By simplifying that friction point, you increase the funnel of high-potential companies that can successfully enter the U.S. market. The Alchemist program, with its World Bank support, is a clear, scalable blueprint for how to do this effectively.
So when you're assessing the risk for this specific cohort, what are investors getting wrong? What's the mispriced risk?
I think the risk that these teams lack technical capability or hunger is, well, it's mispriced. Their demonstrated pedigree and their willingness to execute aggressively, that 10 a.m. to 3 a.m. schedule, the fast pivots, it all suggests very strong resilience.
So the real risk is something else.
The real risk is purely administrative friction.
The speed of the deal is undercut by the administrative wait times.
Precisely. That 72-hour term sheet for Alma contrasts so starkly with the, 6 to 9 month standard processing time for an O1 founder visa.
So VCs are funding companies where the CEO might not even be legally resident for half a year.
Yes. The administrative complexity of the U.S. entity structure and the founder visas, that remains the single biggest operational hurdle. It's not the quality of the team or the technology. Looking ahead, the success of this current cohort over the next, say, 12 to 24 months, it's going to be transformative for the whole region. It will unlock those necessary domestic role models we talked about. Founders who earn significant wealth through intelligence and startups, providing a proven, aspirational alternative.
So our clear call to action for you, the global investor, is to engage directly with these cross-border structures and hubs, and do it now. Ignoring the signal really risks missing the ground floor of Central Asia's first truly globally competitive technology cycle.
So what does this all mean? I think this is the question to leave you with. Is the real investment signal here the AI technology itself? Or is it the repeatable arbitrage model of combining world-class, cost-effective Central Asian talent with Silicon Valley's unparalleled capital access and distribution network? That's the strategic question you need to be mulling over.
A great note to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.